Hello everybody, Mike here. I am here today making a resource for each and every one of you who are eyeball deep in charter renewal process this year. As I record this, it is early October 2022, and we're gearing up here at the end of the year to finish up the recharter process or charter renewal. It's referred to either way, for the calendar year 2023. So this is what this is all about. If you are in the Cascade Pacific Council, this is probably very applicable to you. I am going to send this out to a lot of the Pacific Trail District charter processor folks. If you're from a different district, welcome. It's great to have you here. You can use this and refer back to it as much as you want. I'm happy to share with the other districts in our council. So I'm going to try to give you an overview of what the charter renewal process is going to be like this year and some tips and tricks that we have learned over the past, I'm going to say about 12 months of using this tool. We've been through this once last year, and a lot of things have been fixed. A lot of challenges we had have been overcome, and we understand how to skirt around some of the other things that we've experienced. So come along for the ride and let's learn what charter renewal is going to be like this year. If you are brand new to this process, this is essentially something that we do every year here in the Cascade Pacific Council. It's towards the end of the calendar year, and we do it for two reasons. First and foremost is it's essentially a roster audit for each of our units. We want you, as one of the primary unit leaders, to go through your roster, both youth and adult, and make sure that everything is correct. Do you have all of the youth that are participating on your roster? Are there any youth that, as an example, in a troop turned 18 and shouldn't be on your roster? Let's make sure those get removed. Is there an adult that's no longer active or has moved to Georgia or any of these things? Or is there an adult that needs to be registered and isn't? Are people in the right roles in your troop, pack, or crew? So those are all sort of the roster audit part of the process. The second thing, and this is sort of an old tradition with scouting, is that we go back to our chartered organization for each unit and we say, hey, do you want to continue this scouting thing with us this year? And almost inevitably our charter organizations say, yes, let's continue scouting. And so there's a quick approval process and we're off and running for the next calendar year. What I want everyone to think of in terms of what to do right now, especially if you're brand new to this, is to start thinking about your unit's roster and to go back to especially the my.scouting.org roster tool. And I'll show you that in just a minute here. And make sure that the youth members are correct on your roster. The adult volunteers are correct. You can even go correct things like if a family has moved across town or whatever and their address needs to be updated. You can do that. Even before you open the Recharter tool, you can take care of those simple things. So the most important thing is to get the youth members correct. And then additional to that, let's make sure we get our adult volunteers in correctly as well. Please do your best to update the data to be correct as possible, as correct as you know it. One of the biggest frustrations that some of our district and council volunteers have at this time of the year, when it's kind of late in the year, is that a lot of that information in the database is stale, and it's kind of frustrating if we're trying to contact somebody or what have you. So I want to get into, especially if you haven't done this before, I want to really lay out one of the most important things. It is really important that your unit's key 3 be correct before you even open the charter renewal tool. And I'm going to probably talk about this again in a little bit, but start at the top and work your way down. If you have a new chartered organization, if your unit is shifting chartered organizations, get that taken care of first. If the chartered organization is the same, but you have a new executive officer, get that taken care of first. If those are the same, but you have a new chartered organization representative, get that one taken care of, and then on and on and on down the line, to the point where you want to make sure your key 3 is correct before you even open the tool, if at all possible. We had some issues last year where charter processors for a couple of units just were fighting a whole bunch of errors that was the result of them opening the tool and then going and trying to change a bunch of key volunteers after opening the tool. It's kind of locked in once you open it. Anything that is unit leader, which is Cub Master, Scout Master, or Venture Crew Advisor, Committee Chair, Chartered Org Rep, and Executive Officer. Also, if you can, add new youth to your units via a youth application, whether that be somebody who has never been in scouting before, it's a brand new youth member, or it's a transfer, whatever. Get those in before starting the process. It'll make everything go much smoother. As best you can. Yes, you can add new youth members during the process. It's just frustrating and clunky. If you have a volunteer, an adult, who is not yet registered, as an example, and they're not in a key role. They're not a unit leader. They're not a committee chair. They're not a chartered org representative. Maybe they're a committee member, a den leader, an assistant scout master, an assistant cub master, whatever. They're not in yet. Maybe, especially as you're getting later in the year and things aren't quite lining up right, maybe consider just waiting to get them registered until after Recharter is done. That might make the process that much quicker, much more smooth than trying to force them in during the process. It is possible to register an adult leader during this Recharter renewal or charter renewal process, but it's clunky. It's not easy to do, and I'll tell you more about that later. Also, as most of you probably know by now, to charter a unit, a BSA unit, whether it be a pack, a troop, or a crew, there are minimum membership requirements. For youth members, you have to have 5 primary members within your unit. Yes, youth can be registered in more than one unit in a lot of different ways. You can have a Cub Scout in 2 different packs. You can have a Scouts BSA unit member who's in a troop as well as a crew, or a troop as well as a Sea Scout ship, or all of the above, or even 2 troops or 3 troops. Only one should be the primary, and that's one of the things we get into trouble with is knowing who the primary is. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about multiples. So 5 youth members for any unit, pack, troop, or crew, that are primary in that youth, in that unit. You also need, for crews and for troops, 4 living, breathing adult humans. You need a chartered org representative. You need a committee chair. You need 2 committee members, and you need a scoutmaster. But there's a caveat. The chartered org representative can also double register as the committee chair or as a committee member. I don't necessarily recommend that, but it's possible, which brings you down to 4 living, breathing adult humans to recharter a crew or a troop. If you're in a pack, you need 1 more. You need 1 den leader of, I think, any stripe. Not an assistant, a den leader. Can be a tiger leader, can be a den leader, can be a Weeblos leader. It's my understanding. So for packs, you need 5 living, breathing adult humans who are unique and wonderful. So those are the minimums for any unit. Make sure you have those in mind. Who are going to be your adults that are going to fill those roles? Anything beyond that is extra special awesome. If you have 8 den leaders and 4 assistant cub masters and 18 assistant scout masters, that's amazing. Go for it. But for those of us who have small units, those are things to keep in mind. For those of you who are veterans to this process, this is going to be very, very similar to last year with a couple of updates. Again, there are no codes. We used to have these codes that get handed out with passwords. None of that. That's part of the reason why the key 3 thing is so important to have that locked down before you even open the tool, because those people that are key 3, again, chartered org representative, scoutmaster, unit leader will be scoutmaster, cub master, or crew advisor, and or the committee chair. Those are the key 3. Those are given special rights in the electronic tool to go in there and use this thing. It is the same site, the same tool that we used last year. I have a link in this this presentation for you, so keep an eye open for that. The individual that's handling the charter renewal process must either be one of those key 3 members, or one of those key 3 can also assign a delegate. So it could be a committee member, it could be a den leader, it can be assistant scoutmaster, or whatever. Anybody who's registered can be a key 3 delegate, and then they will be given the permissions to use the tool. I will ask you again this year, please be patient. We have seen a lot of issues that we observed last year have been resolved. Some of them I'm going to tell you about, which are really good. It's a good first step for the first year to get some of these things cleaned up and good checks in place, but there are inevitably more issues and bugs that we're going to find. I promise you. So let's go ahead and move on. Again, what can you do right now? Go to your roster in the my.scouting.org tool. take notes of what needs to be changed. Please, please do not use Scout Book. Do not use Scout Community. Those things can lie to you. What you really want to do, you're accessing the database essentially directly when you go to the my.scouting.org tool and you look at the roster under your unit, and there's a roster tool. Also, under your unit in the my.scouting.org tool, use the training report manager to create some unit training reports, and go look specifically at youth protection training and whose youth protection training is expiring over the next couple of months, especially who's or is expired, heaven forbid. Follow up with those adult volunteers with expired or expiring youth protection training. If nothing else, between those that are expiring before the end of this calendar year, before or on December 31st, 2022. You will have best results if every single adult leader's youth protection training does not expire anytime soon. And really what you could do to be on the ball is to look into January, February, March of 2023. And if anybody's youth protection is coming up to be due at that point, remind them and just ask them, hey, can you get that taken care of, sooner than later, just in case. We have seen times where charters have been put on hold, and then if it crosses over a date boundary and that YPT expires, and all of a sudden we get a whole new hurdle that we have to get over and make sure that adult leader renews their youth protection and gets that certificate in. It's just a mess. Go do the youth protection training aging report and see whose YPT is expiring. Get that taken care of first and foremost. So roster and YPT, and then you'll be really in good shape to get going on this in a big hurry. Any outstanding youth members that are not registered but should be? Do you have a youth application sitting on a shelf in a drawer? I kid you not, I hear about this a lot. Oops, we forgot to submit that application. Just get it into council so the kid is part of your unit, or an adult, it's part of your unit if you can. More important than this, the youth applications get in than the adults, to be honest. We don't want the youth to be held back by not being in the system, essentially. And again, verify that your critical adult volunteers are registered. Again, that really comes down to those key three and or the living, breathing humans that you need to make your unit charterable. All right, I'm going to take a brief aside here and tell you about the membership fees from national and our local council for 2023. So this is what we're looking at in terms of what we're going to pay. And I believe all this was updated as of October 1st. And if you have anybody who's brand new for October 1st, you're going to be prorated through the end of this year, and then you're going to add on the entire set for 2023. They'll be registered through the end of next year. We have that frequently with our council, and it's a good thing. So BSA registration per year for youth is $75. I don't have on here that there is that additional, I believe it's $25 if you are a brand new youth to BSA and you've not been registered before. There is a Cascade Pacific Council insurance fee. It's the same this year at $12. That applies to youth and adults. And the Scout Life magazine subscription, you'll notice, has gone up by $3 per year. It is optional, of course. A lot of our youth do enjoy reading that, so just know that is now $15 per year. And adult volunteer registration is $45. I think that's up a couple dollars. One thing you'll notice is that the unit to charter is now $100 even. I think it was $75 or $74 last year, if I remember right. So the costs have gone up a little bit. It's not terrible. It's just that's the price of scouting at this point. So those are the member fees for 2023. Okay, so let's talk about this tool. The plan is for this tool to launch in early October 2022. As I record this, I believe that the tool is live. Now, before you go running off and clicking that link and just go for it, make sure you've done the things that I mentioned already with the roster audit and making sure that all of your key volunteers are in place and registered in the right capacity before you go open this tool. That is kind of like locking in some of those things. So that is the link. Access is for Key 3 and Key 3 Delegate. It's essentially a side door into the Internet Advancement tool. So there you go. It is the same exact credentials that you use to access my.scouting.org and Scoutbook. I'm going to recommend that you use the Chrome browser because it's honestly what I use. I don't have any experience and haven't tested it with any of the other browsers, and I haven't seen a lot of accolades about how it works better with Firefox or something else. I can't speak to Apple products if it works well on something like Safari or any of the other Apple browsers that are native to that system. I can tell you that it works great on a Windows operating system. My guess is it works fine on Mac OS, but I don't know for sure. I'm pretty sure there's somebody in our council that has Recharter with Mac OS. Don't get too crazy and go back to using Windows 3.1 or some Linux derivative. Lifeguard not on duty at this point. So there's that. That's what I have experience with and can tell you I know it'll work on a Windows PC with Chrome. Everything else, good luck and let me know how it works. Who can access the tool? As mentioned, it was that Key 3 set of individuals, the charter org representative, the committee chair, and to be honest, the committee chair is often the traditional person who will handle Recharter. Not necessarily. They could delegate it to any of the other Key 3 or somebody else and make them a Key 3 delegate. Unit leaders also have access. So if you're a Cub Master, Scout Master, Crew Advisor, Sea Scout Skipper, the whole shoot and match, you can get in here and do this, or at least look around and see what's going on. Key 3, as mentioned before, can delegate someone to act as a Key 3 in the online tool. That's a Key 3 delegate. That's done by going into the my.scouting.org tool in the unit's organization manager. There's a position manager on the right side navigation bar and a functional tab that'll get you there. And the only caveat for a Key 3 delegate is they must be a registered adult within your unit. It can be a den leader, scouter reserve, anything like that. It does not work for a registered merit badge counselor because that is actually registered as a district level volunteer, not a unit level volunteer. The final step of the process does require that a chartered org representative, the one that you have registered with your unit, sign digitally via Adobe Sign, which is really a slick tool. It was very easy to use last year as long as your chartered org representative was responsive, able to use email, click a link, and digitally sign something. We do also have charter org representatives in our council, in our district, that are not very tech savvy. So if it's challenging for your charter org representative to actually check email, follow a link, and do all those things, that person and only that person can assign a charter org representative delegate to do the digital things for them, basically. And it, again, can be, I think, any of the other registered adult leaders within your unit. I will make the caveat, I said this last year, I'll say it again, be careful when you're doing this. It's kind of handing off the keys of the kingdom to somebody else, but I learned something new this year about it. That's only true with a digital tool. So that person who is a chartered org representative delegate on my.scouting in the functional role can approve or disapprove new adult leader applications and can, of course, sign the charter, which is the whole point of what we're talking about here. They are not necessarily allowed to be the delegate of a paper and ink signature in person. If that's required for anything, then the actual chartered org representative or the executive officer, usually it's one or the other representing the chartered organization, needs to physically sign the thing. That's becoming less and less required for a whole variety of reasons. So hopefully that makes sense. I know it's a lot, but know that the chartered organization representative, the COR, is a very important part of this process. It's really step 2, and we had a lot of units get hung up with their COR not understanding that they were a key part of this process. So make sure you bring in your chartered org rep early and let them know that this is happening. All right, so let's do a quick tool preview. A couple years ago, this was a big, long 9-step process. Now it is literally a 2-step process. The step 1 is to complete your charter renewal. It's essentially the roster audit. I can speak. You're going to see that long list of adult volunteers, youth members, And you're going to go through and be able to change all kinds of things in that. There's lots of density there in terms of selection, and changing whether or not the youth get Scout Life, what position adult leaders are in, and all that kind of stuff. And then step number 2 is to validate your charter and pay. And that's where you will have the tool send your charter organization representative a request for a digital signature via Adobe Sign. And then once that's done, every single person within your Key 3 triad, and possibly the delegate as well, will get a notification. Hey, your charter's in, it's been signed, all good. And then it will go to Sherry Burns down at the office, and she'll do the real check to make sure that it actually really is good. And we've had instances where things have been put on hold, or in some other way waiting for some other thing to trigger. We'll talk about that in a little bit, some of those cases. There is a very high density of selection on that first page in step 1. Please be careful where you click. Make sure that everything is correct. You can let it sit on your screen for a long time and look at things and scroll up and down as needed. Every edit that you can do to your roster is available on that one page. It is a very feature-dense thing. Honestly, there's not a ton to actually change. You can do the simple changes in the my.scouting.org roster tool before you open it. Like I was mentioning, if you had a family that's moved and has an address update, an email address change for any of your adults, for instance, or a phone number change, stuff like that, that can be done on the my.scouting.org roster tool very easily, typically by the Key 3. For youth members, usually it's the Scout Life, subscription. It's a simple slider, I think, to the far right of the Scout, whether they are or are not requesting that. And then that Scout will have $15 extra added to their registration fee that'll total up for you in your unit. And then the adult leaders, you can modify their registration position. You can also remove any member. There's a checkbox here, and that you can check the individual that you want to remove and go up to the Manage Members drop down here and just select Remove from the Charter. And boom, they're done. They're out. You can also add a new member. It's possible you need to have a PDF scanned application. It needs to be in PDF format of the paper application. You can actually download that, and it's a fillable thing. You can fill it out and type out the parts that you can do, print it, have the applicant sign it and initial where necessary, and then rescan it to PDF, and that's ready to go. That actually works pretty well for a youth member. However, keep in mind that a new adult needs both a youth protection training certificate and a background check authorization, which is what CBC stands for here. And here's the caveat. So you got 3 documents that ideally will all be scanned PDFs, but you can only attach one file. So the way to do this is to zip everything together into one compressed zip file and then attach it to the right spot on that person's application. How lucky are you feeling if you want to try getting that done? I'm going to say pass, and I'll either get it done beforehand or I'll wait for Charter to clear and do it after. However, note that it is possible. My comment here is, here be dragons. Lifeguard not on duty. Really only use that if you really need to. It can get really dicey. So you can also use the invite new member portion of this. It can be useful. It's very similar to our lead manager within my.scouting.org, which ties into bescout.org if I recall correctly. The plus symbol on the left of the name denotes that there is a multiple registration. And again, for primary, for youth and adults, you can select each of those people to be a multiple. What that means is, here it is, any member can be registered in more than one unit. It can be an adult, it could be a youth. If you know or you suspect that that person is active in another unit, please do your best to reach out and discuss that, confirm with them, and then coordinate with the other unit who is going to be the primary. Only one unit should be paying for that person who is involved in more than one unit. If both units pay for the same individual, those membership fees, if they get all the way to National Council, are essentially lost. National Council, BSA, has always said membership fees are non-refundable. period. And we'll get to payment in just a second. But it's entirely possible for you to shove a bunch of money down a trap door and not be able to get it back and realize that the other unit was supposed to pay for them. They should have been free for you. So make sure you have that conversation. Who is paying for that person? I want to take a moment to talk about this for just a second outside of the slides. The thing that we've learned about this is that if you have, let's say, 2 units, a pack and a troop, and they're very tightly related, pack 1, 2, 3 and troop 1, 2, 3, right? And you have, let's say, an adult leader in both. You have an assistant cub master and an assistant scout master, which is great, right? Ideally, if that's the only multiple in the whole situation, and those 2 units decide that Bob Assistant Scoutmaster, who's also Bob Assistant Cubmaster, is going to be primaried in the pack 1, 2, 3, then that pack would note that person as primary. In fact, I think that would be doing essentially nothing, not noting them as multiples. And then the pack submits their charter first, and then it gets into the system. It has 24 hours to get through and be processed and posted, and everything's clear. Then the troop has a green light, in essence, to submit their charter. If it's opposite, what's going to happen is the troop, where there's a multiple pointing at the pack, and they submit first, that charter is going to sit and wait and fester until the pack submits, where that person is primary. And we've basically got to put those pieces together on the back end. If ideally the unit with the primaries submits first, everything goes smoothly. So let's extend that example and say that you have a pack, 2 troops, and a crew. So let's say pack 1, 2, 3, troop 0, 1, 2, 3, troop 5, 1, 2, 3, serving both young men and women, and then you have crew 1, 2, 3, right? And they have shared adult leaders and shared youth. The ideal thing to do is to try to get as many primaries into one unit as possible and do that submission first, and then move on and on and on until finally the last submission has all the multiples, right? In our district, our family tree gets messy. There are multiples and pointers everywhere, and I know it's not going to be perfect. We're going to do our best to do it, get things done clean, and communicate as much as you can with those around you. We're all in this scouting thing together. We're all friends here. Let's make sure we understand clearly who is paying for each individual volunteer and get that in as cleanly as we can. It's never going to be as clean as the example I gave you, but let me know if you have any challenges, if you have any questions. I'm here to help. All right. Some important notes on this. A lack of or expired youth protection training for an adult volunteer is, as of this year, a hard error. This is an improvement from last year, where it would allow you to submit with youth protection completely expired on everybody, and then it would get stuck on Sherry Burns' desk. This year, there's actually a check in place that will go and look for it. So make sure, again, that all those adult volunteers have their youth protection good through the end of the calendar year, if not beyond. If there is no background check authorization on file at council, that's not a hard error yet. That's going to allow you to submit. There's no check for it, to be honest. It's going to allow you to submit it. And then if there's some issue where Joe Scoutmaster doesn't have a background check authorization, it's going to get put on hold, and Sherry's going to say, hey, look, we need background check authorization from Scoutmaster Jim, or whatever it is, right? My understanding is that the lack of sufficient adult leadership, remember, it is 4 living, breathing adult humans for troops and crews, 5 for packs. That is a hard error. That's pretty easy for the tool to check. So make sure you have those in place and all the right people in the right places, essentially. Now, here is another change from last year to this year. If you'll remember, last year the big recommendation was just pay national, do it via e-check or credit card. Well, we had all kinds of interesting challenges. So if you have any reservations and think that for any reason your charter might need special attention, there might be something missing, it might be put on hold, there's multiples involved or whatever, it is recommended that during step 2, which is the submit and sign process, there's a little button that says print your your charter or print your charter paperwork or something like that. Print that out and then have your treasurer write a check to Cascade Pacific Council for the total on the page. Take it all in and hand it to the person behind the desk at the volunteer services desk at council. They will look at it. I think Kelly Mills has been behind the desk for quite some time. It'll go to her eventually. That's what the paperwork is for. It'll go to Sherry Burns correctly. You also need to submit electronically, but make sure you have that paper copy and save one for yourself, for crying out loud, right? Just as a backup, if not two, save that PDF file. Now, so that is the recommendation is print it, submit it, take it down with a check to council. And one of the big reasons why we're asking people to do that is we had lots and lots of folks where those multiples didn't get assigned correctly, and units lost money on individuals, volunteers that should have been paid for by a different unit, and they didn't know, forgot, or whatever. If you take a check to council, they can basically hold on to that and then say, oh, wait a second, Jim Assistant Cubmaster is multipled over here with the pack. Here's your $75 back, or whatever it is, 45 and 12. It can add up, is what it comes down to. Now, if you have a smaller unit, if you have a super clean unit where there are no multiples, there are no issues, you know that it's going to be just slick as a whistle, there are no challenges, and you want it to be done with, and you don't want to worry about going down to local council, you can pay national council directly. That is fine. There are two options for doing that. You can pay with a credit card online. Note that there is a 3% added fee for the convenience of doing that. A scout is thrifty. Consider what that means. Second option is you can pay with an e-check or ACH transaction online, where you will need your routing number and an account number for, I think it can be a checking account or possibly a savings account. That is a $1 added fee. Note that there are microtransactions when you do that, micro deposits that then get pulled back, and you have to confirm the data of those microtransactions with the payment tool. We had one of our units, one of my long-term scouters, somehow goofed up those four numbers. Essentially, it's four numbered cents essentially, and goofed that up, and the whole thing went sideways. It's an error-prone process. It is possible to completely goof that up. Keep that in mind as you decide what you're going to do this year to make payment. Another note, if you for some reason are a Key 3 or a Key 3 delegate and you cannot access the tool, please contact Pete Simpson. He will help you get that figured out. And let me know too, I might be able to figure out what's going on. For those of you that know me, know that I am very big on Journey to Excellence. I think it's a very important thing that we do. JTE is still paper. I think there's also a Excel spreadsheet that we can use. It's out there. I'll point people to it when the time comes. We're doing this similar to last year. I'm asking everyone to submit those to me, fill them out. You can send them to me as a PDF form. You can take a picture of the paper that you've scribbled on and signed and send me an image. I'll make it work. Whatever works for you. You can email it to me. You can text me. Hand it to me at Starbucks or something if you happen to run into me. That's fine. I just want to have every unit that's willing to do this, and hopefully it's all of our units, hand in their Journey to Excellence, go through the process, see where you're at. It's a really good thing in terms of guiding you and your unit in where things are going well and where things may have room for improvement. So there's that. All right, a few more important notes. Our goal this year, yes, for those of you that have done this for a long time, I know it's a little bit of a pie in the sky, but we're going to try. We're going to try to have this done before the week of Thanksgiving. Please try to get your charter submitted before, I think it's Friday, November 18th, 2022. If we do that, we'll have plenty of runway to work out any issues between that date and the end of the calendar year. If everyone waits until the very last moment to submit, we're going to be in a hot mess of trying to get everything sorted out, and it is nuts. Please also note that if you fail to submit your charter by December 31st, 2022, I'm told bad things happen. Essentially, your unit no longer exists. If you are a troop and you have a youth member who's working on Eagle, they turn 18 in early January, you are doing that youth an incredible disservice. Your unit doesn't exist until you submit Recharter, your charter paperwork, and it gets posted. That's just the honest truth of it, okay? I don't mean to be reactionary or inflammatory here. Okay, so a couple points here as well. If you have a new executive officer or if you have a new chartered organization, please use the new unit application form. You scratch off new unit, write new EO, so it becomes a new EO application. Fill out everything as best you can on the bottom half if it's the same chartered organization. If it's a different chartered org, you're having your units shifting from one to another. Hopefully you have a council professional helping you with that. I think you need to fill out the entire thing because you have a new CO and you have a new EO. You probably have a new COR and a whole bunch of stuff. Make sure your executive officer does check the yes box for the religious declaration of principle and sign that form. I believe it's the bottom left. You can scan that and send that to 492.membership@scouting.org. That is our council membership team, and they will get that taken care of, especially if it's just the new EO. And that happens a lot this time of year. We have a new PTA or PTO president. You have a new American Legion president. Those things cycle through every year, it seems like. Or there's a new pastor at the church that charters your unit, whatever. This happens a lot. It's not hard. We're just using this form now. So couple of resources for you. There's a link here on the BSA National site that is their official internet rechartering resource. There's a good video here for you to go and reference to. And the second link, I want everybody who's the charter processor to consider downloading that PDF, saving it locally, and having it on hand as you go through this process. That Rechartering 2.0 user guide has been updated for this calendar year and is very handy. I want to say it's like 18 or 19 pages of color indications of where to go, what to do, what happens when you click here, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Very, very handy. Our local council also has a page, Charter Renewal right there on our council's website. That can be handy as well. Additional resources, my name is Mike. Hopefully you have my email address, and as well as our district executive, Pete Simpson. He is a great resource and he can help solve problems and get things done. Finally, if nothing else is working, please contact the CPC membership team at 492.membership@scouting.org with your questions. Hopefully I can intercept some of those and have a clearinghouse of quick questions and answers. But if I'm not responding, if Pete's not responding, you need an answer, go to the 492 membership folks. They're amazing. That's all I got for you today, folks. Thank you. I really appreciate it. If you have questions or concerns, please don't feel to reach out to me. Happy Recharter season. Let's get this thing done.